Dr. Klitzman, give us some examples of mind-stimulating activities that boost our cognitive reserves and help keep our brains sharp.
So there are several, and some of the ones are ones that our inner Betty White will lead us to do. But one is education. So education is a lifelong activity, or should be, or can be. So education certainly when we're young, but also middle age and old age. So as Tara was saying, the more we keep our minds active. So for instance, learning new board games and playing new board games, Mahjong, for instance, or games like Go. Being in discussion groups about books you're reading, discussion books about art, for instance, where both you're being forced to think about specific things, but also communicate with other people. So there are studies that show, for instance, that reading by oneself is helpful, but if you're reading and then discuss it with other people, that's even better. Another thing is learning other kinds of skills, so learning new computer skills, learning how to use a digital camera, learning how to use different video games, for instance, can also be helpful. Music, if you're playing with other people and engage with other people, for instance, can be very helpful as well. And then there's also just physical exercise. So aerobic exercise, which is when you get your heartbeat going more, so running or even walking could be helpful. But also weightlifting is important, even if you're just doing push-ups, because it turns out that in our bones are various proteins, and the stronger the bones are, the more of these proteins are in our system, and they too can help with cognition. And I think that social isolation is a big problem. As Tara was saying, partly being out there, seeing other people is important. Another thing, it turns out that depression is something that affects about 20% of elderly people, and depression itself can lead to cognitive decline. It could lead to people just feeling what's the use of trying to do something, and also it interferes with our ability to think. And lastly is people having a sense of religiosity, a sense of something, a higher power that gives them meaning and purpose, could lead to people being in different kinds of groups, being a church or temple or synagogue, but also a Harry Potter reading group or a something else reading group, and also a sense of having meaning and purpose in your life, as Betty White did, gets you up every day and gets you involved in those activities. So there's several kinds of things that could contribute and help us.